get that for clickbait, huh? Alright. I guess anything else? I get sued all the time. Y'all, stop it.
New drama tonight involving a controversial politician in the south suburbs. Tiffany Henyard was the only Thornton Township leader to...
The political scene in Dalton has always been tense, but the latest drama involving Mayor Tiffany Henyard has taken it to a whole new level. Imagine this: a mayor getting arrested in the middle of a meeting after causing complete chaos, with authorities physically escorting her out. That's exactly what unfolded at the recent Dalton Village Board meeting. What started as a typical gathering quickly spiraled into a scene so chaotic it could easily rival any scripted reality show. But this wasn't a TV plot. It was happening. Live in Dalton, Illinois. Yes, you read that right. Things got so out of hand that the live feed was abruptly cut off. What followed was sheer madness, leaving both viewers and attendees utterly stunned. Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who's no stranger to controversy, has had a rocky relationship with the village trustees for quite some time now. If you've been following the local news, you know that their ongoing tension has been fueled by disagreements over decisions, appointments, and policies. But this meeting? It was like nothing anyone could have expected. The drama started over some questionable spending by the mayor, sending shockwaves through the town. Eyewitnesses said the tension in the room was palpable. Everyone there could feel something huge was about to unfold. Due to the swelling crowds, the board moved the meeting to the local park district building, and it quickly became clear that this wasn't your average village meeting. The village hall was no longer big enough to hold all the concerned citizens, some there for genuine reasons, others seemingly drawn by the escalating drama surrounding the mayor's chaotic political reign. From the outset, Mayor Henyard had no interest in adhering to the usual meeting procedures. She tossed aside the rulebook and embraced a level of defiance and flair that could have been lifted straight from a reality TV script. The stage was set, and the political drama of Dalton was about to unfold in full force. The tensions between Henyard and the trustees were reaching a breaking point. At this particular meeting, Henyard seemed less concerned with solving issues and more intent on putting on a show for the crowd. It was clear she wasn't interested in the traditional norms of leadership. The burning question on everyone's mind: was this a deliberate move to assert her power, or simply another display of her refusal to follow any rules? Either way, the spectacle left many wondering whether her leadership could last, especially as the town faced mounting challenges. Once known for its peacefulness, Dalton was now better recognized for its political chaos than its ability to solve problems. Henyard's controversial leadership only deepened the turmoil, leaving the public to wonder if the town would ever recover. While Henyard seemed to thrive in the chaos, what began as a routine village meeting had morphed into a symbol of Dalton's dysfunction. With her increasingly erratic behavior, the town's central concern shifted to whether the mayor was still fit to lead. As her actions became more unpredictable, residents started questioning her priorities and whether the spectacle had taken over her ability to govern. It became more and more apparent that Dalton's political turmoil was far from over. Each meeting made it clearer that Henyard's grip on power was slipping, and the future of the town seemed uncertain at best.
Invoices lead to more questions, and sometimes we don't get answers to those questions, and so it's not about clickbait, it's about...
Instead of attending the planned meeting at the Park District building with the trustees, Mayor Tiffany Henyard made a bold, controversial move. She decided to hold her own session back at Village Hall. It was a defiant act, almost as if she wanted to send a message that she was still in charge, running the show her way, regardless of what anyone else thought. But things didn't go as planned. What followed could make anyone want to run for cover. Only 2 trustees showed up to her impromptu meeting, falling far short of the quorum needed to make any decisions. Without a quorum, Henyard had no choice but to cancel her self-styled session. It was a huge setback for someone trying to assert dominance, but Henyard wasn't going to back down. Determined to make her presence felt, she hopped into her car and headed straight for the Park District building, where the trustees were continuing without her. What happened next was nothing short of dramatic. Henyard barged into the meeting, completely disrupting the proceedings and drawing everyone's attention. What should have been a tense but orderly meeting quickly descended into chaos as her sudden appearance stole the spotlight. "Hello, hello," she declared, setting off a stir among the trustees and everyone present. Once again, Dalton's political drama was on full display. The room, already brimming with tension, erupted into confusion as Henyard took center stage, refusing to follow anyone else's rules. Her dramatic entrance was a perfect illustration of her leadership style, marked by disruption and defiance. It left many in the room and the public at large wondering whether Dalton's political turmoil would ever come to an end. As the Aubrey dust began to settle, things only got worse. The widening divide between Henyard and the trustees became even more glaring, with the town's residents caught in the middle of a brewing power struggle. To make matters even more complicated, Henyard was hit with a temporary restraining order that prevented her from making certain appointments without board approval. This legal issue further isolated her from the very government she was meant to lead. As Henyard entered the room, the tension shot through the roof. An electric charge rippled through the crowd, with residents visibly reacting to her surprised appearance. Many were fed up with her antics and divisive leadership style, and their frustration was clear. Some even turned their backs on her as she walked in, a silent yet powerful gesture of disapproval louder than any words could express. Unfazed, Henyard approached the microphone with an air of defiance and declared, "I am the mayor of the OID, village of Dalton," as if to reassert her authority in a room that clearly wasn't having it. Before she could continue, her statement was met with an overwhelming wave of resentment. The crowd's reaction only deepened the rift between her and the trustees, further alienating her from the people she was supposed to lead. Instead of solidifying her position, this episode only widened the chasm within Dalton's leadership, leaving the town on edge and wondering where this political spectacle would go next. The room erupted in boos and shouts, drowning out Henyard's declaration with a deafening chorus of anger, frustration, and exhaustion. The uproar was immediate and relentless, an unmistakable reaction from residents who felt ignored, misled, and burdened by Henyard's controversial leadership. Her attempt to seize control of the meeting only fueled the already volatile situation. With attendees openly challenging her motives and presence, it was clear that the people had had enough. What began as a routine trustees meeting devolved into a chaotic spectacle, with Henyard at the center, a figure so polarizing that her actions seemed to only deepen the divide between her and the very citizens she claimed to represent. The room transformed into a battleground of words and gestures, revealing the growing frustrations of a community desperate for accountability and competent leadership. Henyard's dramatic entrance, paired with the crowd's hostile response, showed just how much trust had eroded under her administration. Many wondered if reconciliation or resolution was even possible. As Dalton continued to struggle with its internal divisions amidst the chaos, the temporary restraining order served as a stark reminder of her waning authority. It prevented her from making key appointments without the board's approval, further stoking the tension and pushing Henyard even closer to the edge. Witnesses described the scene as pure chaos as Henyard tried to take charge of the already volatile meeting, only to be drowned out by shouting, boos, and public disapproval. She tried to speak over the uproar, demanding respect and calling the Meeting illegal. Her goal, she declared loudly, was to make key appointments, including naming a new police chief. But her words were lost amidst the deafening clamor of a crowd that wasn't listening. The tension in the room became unbearable as Henyard struggled to maintain her composure. The noise, frustration, and outright hostility were simply too much. She lasted just 7 minutes before being forced out, effectively booed out by the very people she claimed to serve. What happened next was pure chaos. Mayor Henyard stormed out of the building, visibly fuming from the crowd's rejection. The situation quickly spun out of control as reports began circulating that, enraged by the public humiliation, she had allegedly gotten physical with one of the officials present. This confrontation only added fuel to the fire, amplifying the already tense atmosphere to unprecedented levels. Police officers, who had been strategically stationed nearby in anticipation of trouble, rushed in to restore some semblance of order. But what happened next stunned everyone present. Mayor Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed supermayor of Dalton, Illinois, was arrested. This arrest was a jaw-dropping turn of events. What had started as a high-stakes meeting spiraled into a spectacle of dramatic consequences. Residents watched in disbelief as Henyard, once a divisive figure who had positioned herself as the town's strong leader, was escorted away in handcuffs. Her attempt to seize control of the narrative was completely undone by the overwhelming public backlash and her own unrestrained actions. The aftermath of the incident left the town reeling, a stark reminder of the deep divisions and mounting tensions that had come to define Henyard's controversial time in office. What began as an ordinary town meeting had quickly escalated into an all-out political drama, with Henyard at the center, her leadership aspirations crumbling under the weight of her own conduct. Dalton's political turmoil is far from over. This moment, almost absurd in its sheer unpredictability, will be forever etched in the town's history as a harsh lesson on how quickly a leader's authority can vanish when trust is shattered and political theatrics take precedence over effective governance. Henyard's dramatic fall from grace, marked by public spectacle, left many wondering what lay ahead for Dalton and whether the damage caused by her leadership could ever be repaired. The live broadcast of the meeting was abruptly cut off when Henyard was taken into custody. The image of a sitting mayor being dragged out of her own meeting in handcuffs seemed almost scripted, but this was very much real life. To understand how this dramatic arrest unfolded, we must take a step back and examine the bigger picture. This wasn't a sudden turn of events. It was the result of months, if not years, of escalating tension, chaos, and Henyard's outright defiance. From the moment she took office, Henyard made waves in Dalton, consistently pushing boundaries and making decisions that left the community questioning her judgment. Her tenure had been riddled with controversy, whether it was clashing with trustees, ignoring legal orders, or making major appointments without board approval. Henyard made it clear she intended to run things her way, regardless of the rules. One of the most notable examples was when she appointed a new village manager, village attorney, and police chief, without consulting the board. These were significant decisions that, according to local government procedures, should have involved collaboration with the trustees. But Henyard disregarded these procedures, acting as though they didn't apply to her. Understandably frustrated by her blatant disregard for procedure, the trustees took the matter to court. A judge intervened, issuing a restraining order that stated Henyard could not make those appointments without the board's approval. Did she take the court's ruling seriously? Of course not. Henyard's defiance continued, setting the stage for the explosive events that led to her arrest. Ever the self-proclaimed supermayor, Henyard built a reputation for crossing boundaries and pushing the limits of her power. The restraining order was just another line she crossed without hesitation, further solidifying her image as a leader more focused on maintaining control than abiding by the law. At one point, there were even talks of holding her in contempt of court for repeatedly ignoring legal processes. Her efforts to consolidate power earned her more enemies than allies. It wasn't just the trustees who were fed up with her. It was the residents as well. The people of Dalton watched in growing frustration as Henyard's leadership shifted from serving the community's best interests to serving her own agenda at every turn. It became clear that Henyard was more concerned with holding on to power than collaborating with the very citizens she was elected to serve. This growing dissatisfaction only intensified when rumors of financial mismanagement began to surface. Whispers of Henyard's alleged misuse of public funds spread throughout the town, and reports of extravagant spending and questionable taxpayer-funded trips painted a picture of a leader more interested in self-interest than serving Dalton's residents. The lack of transparency regarding where public money was going was becoming glaringly evident. Henyard's leadership was plunging Dalton deeper into chaos. Despite these rumors, she continued to present herself as the people's mayor, rallying her supporters on social media with calls for solidarity. In one post, she wrote, "I need all my black sheep to stand with me. You are not alone. If God is for us, who could be against us?" It seemed as though she saw herself as the hero of this story, fighting against a corrupt system that was conspiring against her. She cast herself as the victim of an unjust political machine, adopting a siege mentality. However, this rhetoric only distanced her from the very people she needed to win over. The residents of Dalton, growing increasingly disillusioned with her leadership, began to see through the cracks in her narrative. As Mayor Tiffany Henyard's behavior grew more erratic and her attempts to seize control became increasingly transparent, tensions with the trustees reached a boiling point. The breaking point came when Henyard attempted to assert authority over village affairs during a meeting already filled with frustration. After her failed attempt to hold an independent meeting without the necessary quorum, Henyard stormed into the trustees' meeting at the Park District building, uninvited and as dramatic as ever. Her sudden entrance immediately disrupted the proceedings, turning what should have been a productive session into a full-blown spectacle. Henyard's blatant refusal to follow the rules only deepened the animosity towards her leadership. Her continued insistence on making significant appointments without adhering to due process, and her persistent defiance of legal orders only added fuel to the already burning frustration of both the trustees and the residents. What followed was absolute pandemonium. Henyard's desperate attempt to take control of the meeting was met with boos, shouts, and a hostile crowd. The reality of Tiffany Henyard's political career, once full of potential, had quickly spiraled into an unsolvable mess. Despite retaining a handful of supporters, the tide is unmistakably turning against her. The residents of Dalton have had enough. The trustees are fed up with her power grabs, and even the courts are intervening. Henyard now finds herself in a battle on all fronts, and it's increasingly hard to see how she'll weather the storm. Her leadership is under intense scrutiny, especially with regard to the village's finances. Rumors have surfaced that both Dalton and Thorntown Township are now under federal investigation for Henyard's alleged misuse of public funds. It's not just the FBI involved. State authorities are now entering the fray as well. Leaked documents have revealed questionable spending, particularly on taxpayer-funded trips with no discernible purpose. We're talking thousands of dollars spent on travel accommodations and possibly more, all funded by the public. With the FBI investigating, it's clear that the situation is escalating faster than anyone could have expected. However, Henyard seems to be in deep denial about the growing evidence. She continues to dismiss the allegations as mere attacks from her enemies. A supporter on social media even joked, "She'll probably call it clickbait and fake news when she's in court again," which captures Henyard's usual response to any criticism. But the evidence is mounting, and it's becoming harder to ignore. One user even pointed out her criminal history, recalling that Henyard had been arrested in 2016 for breaking into cars. While it's difficult to confirm the full extent of her legal troubles, it's undeniable that her reputation has been far from unblemished. Henyard has found herself in hot water before, and now, it seems, she's entangled in another major controversy. The big question on everyone's mind is whether this marks the end of the line for Tiffany Henyard. Can she somehow recover from this? Or has her political career been irreparably damaged? Only time will tell. But, as the situation continues to unfold, it's clear that her future is becoming more uncertain by the day. With public patience running thin and legal pressures mounting, Henyard may not be able to weather this storm. The political saga in Dalton is far from over, and we'll be watching closely to see what happens next. As always, share your thoughts in the comments below.